Good morning. We're here live to have our first of a series on social media anxiety, news anxiety. We're going to be covering a lot of different anxieties this morning. And we're here so that we get to kind of think about how the present environment of anxiety is pretty pervasive. We have so much going on in the world right now, and as women, I know I've seen that everyone's anxiety has gotten really amped up, and I'm here to sort of help talk about it so that we have a chance to see what we can do to make a difference, what we can do to help ourselves. And I think I want to speak to the news anxiety that comes up for people. And I know there's a lot of different areas of the news that can be incredibly stressful. So let's focus in on one particular aspect. There's been some recent horrible shootings going on down in Texas. And that is, of course, going to bring up a lot of fear for us. And how do we cope with situations like this when they happen? How do we find that balance between I want to know what's happening, I want to give support to people who are going through this horrible event, and I also don't want to get lost in it and completely flattened by it, and I can't live my life. So this is a really big issue for us as human beings, right? Because we are all connected. We're always all connected. So when something horrible like that is happening, we're going to be impacted, and we have to find that balance where we get to be empathetic. We get to share our support. We get to take action in some way that's helpful, perhaps, donating money or sending, letters of, compassion and condolences for losses. But we don't want to feed the fear. That's the main thing we don't want to do when crazy stuff is happening. And so how do we do that? We got to hold on to ourselves. We've got to find a way to stay centered, breathe, and hold the space for getting through this, right? As a humanity. And so how we do that, you might all do it a little differently. For me, I have to do a morning practice of some kind where I breathe and I get in my body so that I can be here and hold on to myself, share my love, share my support, but not get lost, right? So we want to send those thoughts of love and care and empathy to those people who went through, for example, the shooting in Texas. We want to share that. We don't want to let it take us over where we can't cope and we are then falling apart in despair, right? Like that's not going to help us. It's not going to help anybody. So I want you guys to think about how you're going to help yourself be able to stay centered while you're sharing your love, care, and compassion for people going through horrible tragedies, okay? So you might do that through breathing. You might do that through praying. You might do that through sending a letter and taking action in some way. Find a way that helps you feel like you're staying connected in a way that can be helpful, but you aren't losing yourself, okay? So that's the main key with this kind of media access that we have now to know horrible things that are happening all over and how we can be of service, right? Because if we fall apart, if I watch too much news, I am not helpful. I can get anxious and nervous and so overwhelmed that I'm not helpful to anybody. Myself, my family, my clients, like, forget it. I just want to like crawl in a ball and like not pay attention. But we've got to pay attention because this is our humanity. We're all connected. So how we do that is going to be really important for all of us to figure out for ourselves. So that's my biggest encouragement today, is if it means that you watch the media information about a tragedy, but you only watch it for like 5 minutes. You don't leave it on all day long, right? You don't sit there and just swim in the soup of it all day, because nobody can do that without getting overwhelmed, right? Or maybe you don't watch it on TV. Maybe you read it on the internet or in a paper. So you have control over how much information you're taking in that your nervous system can handle, right? Because it's this balance between, I want to be informed, but I don't want to overwhelm my nervous system, because then I can't cope, right? And again, then we're not doing anybody any favors. So that's the biggest invitation for you guys, is to be thinking about how can you take in the information of what's happening in the world in a way that can help you stay centered and feel connected and loving and caring about people and what they're going through, but not where it's devastating you. Okay, so that's sort of the tidbit of the day, is how do we do that? And again, there's no one right way. We're all individuals. We're all unique in how we help support our nervous system, because anxiety is both the brain, right? It's the brain response to stress. It's the body response to stress, and how those two work together with our belief systems and our emotions and all kinds of things. So it's not one thing. So my invitation is that you think of trying one thing this week, so that you see, is this helpful? If I monitor my time and I don't stay on the internet or on the news for too long, where I'm totally swept, then does that help me be of service? Does that help me then be able to take some action in whatever way works for me to be caring about those people that are going through some tragedy, like in Texas, right? And that's what I want to invite you to do, okay? So think about what you've done in the past that's helped you when things are difficult. Try it on, see if it's still helpful, and if it is, try it for a week. Notice how your body feels, right? A big thing with anxiety is we can tell when something isn't working because we're still feeling anxious. We want to see what helps us minimize how much information we're taking in, so that it's not just flattening us, right? And we're all going to do it in different ways. If anybody has a comment about what helps you, I can see who's joined, and I think I'll be able to read a comment. If you want to share briefly, what helps you cope with hearing about the tragedies and difficulties on the news? Tell me something that you do that helps you. I don't see anybody saying anything. So maybe that's not going to happen, or I can't see it. I really just want to say that I know it's really difficult, but we don't want to completely disconnect in order to cope. We want to find the way that serves us. So that's my pitch for today around social, like news media, that you really need to see how to take care of yourself, right? Because we're all different in our sensitivities, and we all need to find what helps us stay centered, calm, peaceful. You know, I already shared this, but some people have joined. I really limit how much news information I take in, how I take it in, and for how much, access I have. Because I find that I feel like I'm more helpful to the world if I can stay centered, and I can be loving and caring, and I can send prayers, right? Or I can send light to people who are going through things. Other people, it's like they want to be active. They want to get on on to the Red Cross and they want to participate or they want to go down and help. So find what works for you, because there's no one right way. And I just want everybody to know that if you're feeling overwhelmed, that means your body, your soul is saying, the way we're doing it isn't working right now. We've got to experiment with how we're going to take care of ourselves better in the face of kind of the chaos of the world today, right? And the fact that we have news media coverage of knowing a lot of what's happening. And there's the positive side of that. We know what's happening. And the downside of that, we know what's happening. And that can be a little bit too much for us. So we don't want to be, sticking our head in the sand, but we also don't want to be overexposed, over vulnerable when our nervous system can't handle it. Okay. Does anybody else, I have a yes from Michelle. Does anybody else want to share something that you have done that's helped you cope with the impact of all of the news of tragedy and, natural disasters? Catherine's sharing, she really tries to take time to digest before getting reactionary. And that I think that's true. Like, how do we integrate? How do we process what's happening before we're reacting? Because again, if we're feeding the fear, then fear breeds fear, right? And then we're not really helping the state of the world. And I know it's hard. It's like when it's scary and we have all this stuff going on, it's really hard not to be scared, but we want to notice it, and then we want to soothe our bodies. We want to self-coach. We want to tell ourselves we can be of service if we can digest this and see how we want to approach being caring. And being caring can look all kinds of ways, right? And there is so much suffering. So anxiety is, on one level, it's a natural state, right? But it's kind of heightened right now because of all kinds of things going on, right? Politically, environmentally, everything. So we want to see, how do we find a way to cope with all of that, where our anxiety actually helps us see, I'm overwhelmed, this is too much, right? We need to find a way to process the information, have an ability to look at what's happening in a way that works well for us. Of course, Catherine's mentioning the different perspectives of the world. And certainly we all have our spiritual points of view that I think are really important, right? Our spiritual views can help us cope a lot. And I speak to that a lot in my book that's going to be coming up, because I think that we all have an important job to find our spiritual connection that helps us understand how to process what's happening in the world, right? Like, for example, I like to work with the tragedy and loss to say, where am I internally having any kind of conflict that's dangerous inside me? Where am I being abusive and intolerant and horrible to myself, right? So that the world is mirroring that. That's an option. Or how do we just recognize we're all together, and how can we be of service? Debbie's sharing that, not being Pollyanna-ish, but simply seeing things from another perspective, that all of this is happening to allow us to look at things differently, to come together, to bring out the beauty in all of us, like the heart, right? Like the love we want to bring forward instead of the fear. And I'm in agreement with that. I think the more we know we're connected, and the more we behave in a way like we care and we have to wake up and get out of that apathy, the better chance we have of actually making a difference on a conscious level on the planet. So we want to invite that part of us, that conscious part of us, forward, so that we can consciously address tragedy, loss, from a place of centeredness, from a place of love, from a place of I want to be of service, but I also need to take care of myself, right? It's a balance. So we want to keep looking at how do we do that? And there's no one right way. And that's really important, right? Because some of us have a certain faith that says this is how we handle it. Some of us might have a spirituality that says this is how I handle this. And for me, they are all legit and they're all important and sacred, that we all have a way that we cope with this. But this is almost like a spiritual issue. Anxiety in the face of tragedy is like a spiritual issue. We need to keep looking at, how do I want to show up in myself? How do I want to show up in the world in the face of so much going on in a way that's helpful? Okay? And that's for each of us to get on our adventure and try on and see what happens. Your psyche, your body, your soul will always show you if that path is serving you and helping you stay centered and give your best, right? If I'm an anxious mess and I'm just all over the place reacting, I am not going to be helpful. I'm going to be adding to the stress and the craziness and the chaos. So I have to do my work to keep saying, what do I need each day to show up the best I can, to be here for myself, for my family, for my community, and for the world. Because that's my point of view for me, is that's why I'm here. And so I really want to support all of you to keep looking at this question. How can I let my anxiety show me that I need to try something different about how I'm managing all of this information in the news? All right? That's the question. And this is going to be a video that's going to be posted. So if you come up with some great ideas that have worked for you, please share. It'll be on my timeline for Kate Dow. And I just invite you guys to have a beautiful day, a conscious day, showing up for yourself so you can be there for others. Awesome. Take care.